No way. I can see only bitterness and trouble and arguments forever and a day.
Voices from 40 years ago. We heard at the end there strikers from both Cortonwood and Grimethorpe pits. 4 decades later, one person who's making sure it's been marked and remembered is Neil Bingham from Rotherham. He's from a mining family. His dad was at Silverwood pit. Good morning.
Morning.
You were only 3 years old in the year of the strike, but 5 years ago you formed the Silverwood Colliery Heritage Group. Tell me about that. Why did you do that?
I think for me, I grew up in a former coal mining community, and a lot of people have said to me sort of like, what's your connection to a pit? You know, obviously you were really young, you never worked in a coal mine, but for me the Heritage Group is all about making sure the history and the legacy of our local pit, Silverwood Colliery, is remembered and passed on for generations to come. And we do that by putting on exhibitions and displays. We've got a big collection of artifacts and memorabilia that's been donated to us by sort of people that used to work in coal mines. And so we go into schools, museums, basically anywhere that'll have us, and we put these exhibitions and displays on. But also as well, I think a big part of the group, and the reason that I wanted to form it, is because it's all about community, and it's about sort of bringing that community back together, reconnecting people, giving them the chance and the opportunity to sort of reminisce about the days that have gone by, I suppose.
You were 13 when your dad's pit closed. What do you remember from being 13? What was that like?
I think I don't really remember much of that time, to be honest. I don't think it was sort of later on in life that I realised just how important the coal mine was to our community. I guess at 13 I didn't realise the important, significant role that Silverwood Colliery had played in my life. It was only, like I say, as I got older and I grew up, and you kind of look back and you realise that the coal mine was the place that brought wages to the community. It was the place that brought security to the community. It was the place that kind of held everybody together. It was the place that brought unity to the community, you know, that sense of solidarity and everybody sticking together and looking after each other and being part of that close-knit community. So it was only sort of later on as you get older and that kind of, when the pit closed, all that sort of disappeared, and you see almost like poverty setting, you know, that wages, that security that was coming into the community, that's now gone. People start to move away, new housing estates sort of get thrown up, new people move into the area, and you kind of sort of realise that what that close-knit community that you used to have, the place that you grew up in, is the same village, but it's not the same place anymore. So it was much later on in life that I kind of realised just how important Silverwood Colliery was, and how important it was to my childhood and my upbringing, I guess.
40 years on.
Yeah.
It's still raw for a lot of people, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, you know, you speak to any former miner about the events that took place in 1984-85, and you know, they'll talk to you as if it happened just yesterday. And I guess, you know, at that time, community, again, I'm going back to community, but community had never been so important. It, you know, people stuck together. They were fighting for the jobs. They were fighting for the future. They were fighting and standing up for what they knew was right. They were fighting for my generation's future. They were fighting for the jobs. And so, you know, I think you can kind of understand why they still feel this sense of anger and everything sort of taken away from them. And yeah, I guess, you know, as I say, you speak to them about it today, and they'll talk to you like it happened only yesterday, and you can understand that sense of sort of that anger and that frustration that they still feel towards it today.
And that trauma, as you say, is clearly, you know, it's still very present for some people.
Yeah.
How do you process that? And I suppose, how do, you know, groups like this help allow people to process this, even though, you know, like we say, 40 years ago?
I think, you know, we try and do events that, like the one that we're doing this afternoon at Clifton Park Museum, where what we try and do is provide a safe environment, a safe space where people can feel comfortable, where they can sort of so we're giving them the chance to know that there is a place, like there are these events where they can come and they can sort of talk about the events that took place in that year. They can share stories with each other, and you know, that they're not sort of on their own. There is still people like us, like our group, that care, and we just want to provide that opportunity and that chance to let them know that they can still come together in a safe place, a safe environment, and reconnect and reminisce and share their experiences and their memories and their stories with each other.
You go into schools as well,
Yeah,
talk to young people.
Yeah, we try to. Yeah.
It's it must be hard to. I mean, you do a lot. You try and do a lot.
Yeah.
But in terms of sort of, the younger generation that might not even know what this all means.
It's incredible.
Yeah. How do you communicate this to them, and why is it so important that young people learn about this?
I think for me, what struck me is that I live in a former coal mining community, and we've got children living in that village now that have never even seen a piece of coal. The first time I took my daughters to the former pit site, I think they were really young, and there's a memorial wheel on that site. And my eldest daughter looked at me and said, "Why is there half a wheel sticking out at Grandad?" And at that point, you sort of think, this is not right. We've got children living in this village, in a village that was built to house the flow of coal miners that came into the area. The entire village and community was built on coal mining. And we've got children living in this village that know absolutely nothing about it. And so I think what we try and do when we go into schools, as I say, we take the artifacts and the memorabilia and everything that we've got, and we just we have someone on the group's committee that he used to work at Silverwood Colliery. He was a machine man, so he sort of guides them through these exhibitions and these displays and shows them what the artifacts were and teaches them and tells them all about the stuff that they're looking at, and and that can be anything from a miner's lamp to a pit check or a piece of clothing. And the response from the children when we do this is they're absolutely fascinated. They're mesmerised that people used to work underground, and some of them don't even understand or know, the question that we get asked a lot is, why were you digging for coal? They don't get it, and it's like, and I think so for us the aim and the objective of that is just to make sure that the history and the legacy and the memory of the workforce is just passed on for generations to come, and that it's not forgotten.
Neil Bingham there, whose dad was at Silverwood Pit. BBC Look North will be live at the big event at Clifton Park Museum, as he mentioned, and he helped organise. And from 2:00 this afternoon, Toby Foster will be live from the National Coal Mining Museum. He'll be speaking to former miners who took part in the strike and finding out about the work the museum is doing in the local community. And of course, Paulette before that from 10.
Paulette Edwards.